Nico Wolfer, thank you so much for joining us on these Capital News platforms. This is the program Context, and the idea behind this program, as most of you know by now, is to do exactly what the program says. Put issues, put things in context for you to better understand, to be informed, so that you could also make informed decisions. Joining me on Context today is the leader of the Partnership for National Unity, a Partnership for National Unity, leader of the PNC and leader of the opposition, Aubrey Norton. And you know, when it's coming up to elections, they always putting your middle name in there, Aubrey Compton Norton. And welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Enrico, and a very good day to your listening and viewing audience.
Thank you so much for joining us. Let's get straight into the issues. And the issue is that there have been a lot of chatter, a lot of discussion as to who should take what positions in the new administration if you were to be elected, if the people were to elect you as a Partnership for National Unity or as a coalition between a Partnership for National Unity and other parties, including the AFC. Is this thing about position or power?
I would put it this way. The intention of coalition is to ensure you have a wide array of interests reflected in it so that as much as possible you can approximate the population, and therefore it's in a better position to win an election because you would have cut across class, race, religion, and have what can be considered a coalition of the willing.
But to have a coalition of the willing have to be willing.
Well, the truth of the matter is some are willing, some aren't.
And why did that happen? Why, when you're
I believe that there are a number of factors that caused it not to happen. Perceived problems in the coalition while in government. It's one. Two, the desire by some of us to have a totally new slate rather than to have people who would have been involved previously, and in some regard people don't believe that they should be there. Of course, personalities also come in as well. So I would say a combination of factors would have led to but one has to recognize that at the basis of politics is political power, and power also plays its role in terms of people deciding what levels of power they want and what levels they don't want. And so power also plays a role in resulting in not a functioning or the establishment of a coalition.
You're going into the national, the general and regional elections as a Partnership for National Unity. For now, nomination day is still a couple days away. What makes you confident that you have all the numbers in place? Because winning is a matter of numbers. You've got to win this region, let's say Region 4, by a large margin. You've got to win your own hometown region by a large margin. What are your numbers saying to you that would make you confident that you
The numbers are saying to us that we can win. The first thing that one needs to recognize is that the government itself has helped us. The government has been so atrocious, so corrupt, so incompetent that they would have removed a good bit of the work that we would have had to do. Because by their actions, people continue to reject them. They compounded it by, in recent times, police killings, and then the attempted cover-up of the Adriana Young's murder. But more importantly, or just as important, is the fact that in the very PPP strongholds, they have looked after only their friends, their families, and their favorites. And what in essence happened is that a lot of the persons who supported them in 2020 now do not see them as serving their interests. And so that has resulted in a situation where the PPP is very unpopular. I saw recently on the PPP page where they're talking about this big meeting in Dartmouth. But the people who they had seated were all Indo-Guyanese. And Dartmouth is a predominantly African Guyanese community, which says to me that they couldn't mobilize the support, so they fetch it in. And they're doing that across the country. And even in Indian communities, they're having problems. And so I believe that the high cost of living will also contribute, because the government has failed to put measures in place to deal with the high cost of living. And I think every child in Guyana now knows that this is the most corrupt government we have ever had in the history of the country. I believe that plethora of things will give us the numbers we need to win the next election.
And do you believe that you also, from an electoral position, have to look back and see what particularly the PNCR has been labeled with over the years, you know, that you don't go to an election, you don't come out and you don't behave fair, you know, the elections are rigged and what have you. What is your response to those kinds of accusations?
You know, the PPP is good at propaganda. The first election that was overturned in this country was a by-election with the PPP involved. The first time we went into the ballot boxes to see what was actually in the ballot boxes in 2020, we saw a lot of boxes without the requisite documentation. We saw a situation where you knew boxes were padded, and then there was a close correlation between those illegalities and PPP strongholds. So I believe that all the legal things that went on vis-a-vis elections have established that the PPP are riggers. Now, what the PPP does is they use their powerful PR machinery controlling the state apparatus, etc., to portray us as riggers and portray them as if they are democratic. But even if you look at the People's Progressive Party, the way they elect its leadership, you will recognize that the PNC is far more democratic and responsive to democratic concerns than the People's Progressive Party.
So you don't think that all the noise that is being made, that the PNC in particular should apologize for any attitudes and any issues that have been raised in terms of fraud and elections and rigging?
I do not believe that the issue is apology. The issue really was for us to, in these elections, get a clean voters list, get biometrics, so that at the end of the election, no one can claim irregularities. As presently structured, as presently constituted, with a Guyana Election Commission in which the chairman votes every time with the governing party, they have already created the conditions for the elections to be questionable. Were the PPP serious about ensuring credible election? Those two simple things that the PPP itself, Jack Deo called for them, biometrics and a clean voters list when he lost in 2015. But they refused to do it. And I believe one of the reasons they called the elections this early was to ensure that they don't have to get biometrics and a clean voters list. And so I believe that is the crux of the issue. The electoral system needs to be looked at, to be reformed, to ensure that it has the basis for delivering free and fair elections. As presently constituted, it cannot and it will not. We will have to do a lot of monitoring and scrutinizing in the election to minimize the PPP illegalities.
Has your party been weakened by the number of defections that we are hearing about and people crossing the floor? Do recall that in the late 1970s, Vincent Tika, Ranjit Chandy Singh, Harry Lal, and a set of people crossed from the PPP into the PNC.
The Ramkipal brothers, Rupan, many of them did, Majid.
And then we went into a president, a new constitution and what have you. Once you have that kind of crossing of the floor thing happening in the country, how does it affect your particular
Now,
chances?
you know, I think it was Aristotle who said you don't compare non-equals. If you look at the people who came from the PPP to the PNC years ago, they were all long-serving members of the People's Progressive Party. Chandy Singh was deputy leader, among others. Vincent Tika was once head of the youth arm of the PPP. When you look at the people that would have left us, none of them served 5 years in the party. Many of them came in after they became members of parliament. So I would not compare the two. Take, for instance, the last one that resigned, Natasha Singh Lewis. I've been in the party for many years. I only knew her when she became a member of parliament. Manzo Walton joined the party, I think in 2021 or 22. She wasn't there before. And I'm not here attacking them. I'm merely identifying a fact that they were not active party persons in contact with our constituency in a way that they could influence and impact it. And so I do not see it as impacting the party in a negative way. In fact, what it does is allow us to see who's committed to ideas and principles. And therefore, I think we're in a much better position now because we have young people who are there in the party doing the political work. I said from the time I became leader, we were rebuilding the party. And in some regard, they have helped us because they might have been selected to go back to parliament and not serve the party in good stead.
Are you saying that the fruits of the tree have fallen off, but the roots are still strong?
The roots,
I don't want to use another analogy.
Well, the roots have always been
Because you're a
strong.
palm
The
tree.
PNC is bigger than any one of us, including me. The PNC is an institution. Forbes Burnham walked this country and built the PNC as an institution. Many people hope that the PNC will disappear. It will never. It's an institution. And long past Aubrey Norton, there will be a strong People's National Congress reform.
Another criticism that I'm hearing is that, Aubrey, you don't look good. You're not electable. You ain't nice. You know, you're too black for, you know, he black, but he black. You're too black for the position and things like that. I'm sure you've been hearing these comments.
Yes,
What is your response?
I hear them, but you know, certain things to me are not things to be treated with much attention. Why didn't they start with my academic qualifications? I'm more qualified than many. More so my qualifications are legitimate. I went to universities that are known, not some that we have to search for at IFLAT. Why don't they speak about my ability? I served as a Foreign Service officer, negotiated on behalf of Guyana, achieved a lot. Now, when you decide that the color or how I look is important, then you are unimportant. The question of electability is a totally different question. I believe that I'm electable. I believe a lot of Guyanese believe I'm electable. I think a lot of Guyanese look past the surface and look for depth. And when that happens, I'm in a better position than many. Politics is not about good looks. Politics is not about your complexion. Politics, to me, is about your ability to organize. It's about your ability to develop messages that you can send and influence people. It is your ability to overcome problems that confront the society. It is your ability to be firm but flexible. There are a number of qualities for me that constitute presidential qualities that many don't possess, though they look good. So I am not into form. I'm into content.
While you're saying that, the way the world has evolved in terms of the information is that social media, the platforms on which people look at things, all those platforms are looked at from the point of view of attractiveness. Let us be frank about that. So we are in an age where people look at you and look at it and don't look beyond that. How do you overcome that? It's a beauty contest. Who looking nice?
I think we have overcome that. I think when people compare the policies and programs we are outlining, they see a much superior set of ideas than the government and some of those who say you are not electable. I've seen people who they say are electable, and when you engage them in serious conversation, either in a program like this or otherwise, you recognize that they do not have the wherewithal. Leadership is also about the ability to overcome problems, like I said. And you're not going to go into leadership and not be attacked. But I believe when you are attacked, you look at the attacks, strategize, and ensure that you come out of the attacks in a very successful way. And I believe anybody vying for the president of Ghana has to recognize that as a developing country, you start at a disadvantage, and therefore you have to develop your strategies, etc., to survive in this world. I challenge any one of the contestants, people who would have left, and even the president, as it relates to my understanding of this world from a foreign policy standpoint. So I believe the Guyanese people, right on social media, I would do a presentation in Parliament on the Ghana-Venezuela territorial controversy. And when you look at the comments, you see a lot of the people accept that you have content, you're not just form. And so I place a high premium on content because I see a lot of people with form just disappear.
We're with Aubrey Norton. He's the leader of a Partnership for National Unity, the APNU, leader of the PNCR, and leader of the opposition at the moment. He's looking to become the president of the country, in effect, because you're going to be the presidential candidate for a Partnership for National Unity. Therefore, on context, what are some of your policies? What are some of the things people should look forward to? And of course, the ruling party will say, well, we've all done all of that already. You tell us, what are some of the things that you have in store for us, and do it also by regions?
Well, it has to be done both nationally and by region. At the national level, I would say this. Ghana's most important resource is the human resource. And therefore, we believe that for Ghana to succeed, there has to be a proper human resource plan. We have developed a human resource plan in which we intend to train people to have the level of competency that is needed to manage an oil economy. It's a totally different economy, and it needs more professional skills. Also, our health system, our education system, all of them need quality personnel. And so our approach will be to develop the human resources, train the human resources, but also use wages and salaries and other incentives to ensure we retain them, because you can train people and lose them. Retainance of the people is what is important. And so we will focus on human resource. We do not believe that that infrastructure stands by itself. Infrastructure has to contribute to the development of the country. At present, what you have is a government that just produce contracts so that the cronies can benefit, but it isn't in the context of the development of the society. We believe that there's need for a proper infrastructural development plan. There is need for new approaches to road development. We have to go up while we go under. We cannot continue with a road like the Heroes Highway, in which you put impediments to everybody coming out of a village, rather than building a road above so that those who are coming out of the village could come out and get on to a highway. We will change the concept of highway. It has to do with if traffic management, traffic efficiency. So our infrastructural program will also seek to open new lands. While the government speaks about climate change, it continues to focus on projects on the coast, low-lying coast. We believe that there is a lot of highlands between Soesdijk and Lethem. There are a lot of highlands between Linden and Kokwani. And we should be opening these areas. Now, all of those will impact regions because we have to have areas for housing. We have to have areas for industrial site. But you cannot continue putting them in areas that are vulnerable. And so our infrastructural development program will focus on that. And our transportation is a mess. We need to relook transportation and ensure that we have a much better system of transportation across the country to facilitate the easy and cheap movement of people and goods. So our infrastructural development will be critical, and we have developed an infrastructure development plan. Look, we have said we are putting people first. We call our approach to the government the people-centered development strategy. We say this because we know that if a people aren't enjoying life, people who enjoy life don't commit suicide. And we have an increasing suicidal rate. We want to put people first. We want to ensure that people have a livable income, meaning income that they can live the month on with savings. Nobody wants to live from paycheck to paycheck as is happening. And that is why we say we will carry up the income tax threshold to 400,000. So a large section of the society would not pay tax. We have said that in doing wage increases, we won't do it in the way the PPP is doing it to make themselves richer while the poor continues to be poorer. We are going to give higher increase in wages to the lower rungs of the society and lower increases to the higher rungs, so that you begin to close the gap between the rich and the poor in the society. So for us, the whole question of ensuring people can live and enjoy a high quality life is critical, and our people-centered development strategy will pursue that. At the fulcrum of it in terms of housing, we intend to do what we call rent-to-own housing schemes, where we build houses, put people in them, they pay the rent, and then when it covers the costs, then the house becomes there. We believe that sport, culture, and youth are critical. We have said only recently that we will have insurance for our national athletes. We cannot allow our national athletes to get injured and then there's no mechanism to help them and then they're out of sport. It is a sad thing every time a young person comes to me and say, we're going overseas, could you help me with money? No, we will solve that. We will have sponsorship for national athletes so that they can be comfortable and participate. Sometimes I don't believe that the government recognizes that sport culture bring to the country recognition that is relatively cheap. And so we will invest in people so that those people can do well for us. We talk about the education system. We will transform the education system. We'll start by giving teachers a much better income. We will develop quality housing for teachers, especially in the hinterland areas, because a lot of teachers don't want to go to the hinterland because of that. And when the teachers come from the hinterland to Georgetown, they have problems. And that is why we say we will also look at delivering rent subsidies so that once people pay over a certain amount, they will pay the rest. But on at whatever level we decide, we will give a subsidy to cover part of the rent so that somebody coming from another community to serve in another community can have a subsidy. Generally, there'll be a rent subsidy. And we believe this is important because rent is eating out a lot of people's salaries. the salary is small, the rent is big, and the person suffers. Our intention is to get rid of that, reduce it. We will have a poverty reduction strategy. All that I've said to you, they are aimed at reducing poverty, not putting money in the hands of a few as the present government is doing. Look at the government approach to sport. Most of the grounds in this country are now not usable. They have a man that purports to be a sports minister, who I consider to be a clown, breaking up grounds all around this country. Not Linden, for example, that produces the most athletes in this country, does not at present have a ground that athletes can practice on. They have to make their way through this rough situation. We want to change that. We believe youth culture and sport critical. Education is critical. We want to see smaller classes. We want to see better equipped schools so that teachers can focus on the children. We have said we will give 2 hot meals as part of our poverty reduction program because our children need the nutrition to realize their academic potential. We have said that we will establish in the society a national schools transportation system to take children to school. We said we will give cash transfer to children because we believe the children are the future. But even before we get there with the child, we began when we were in government, and I led the pilot projects. We developed 6 early childhood development centers, and we intend to create a network, a national network of early childhood development centers so that we can begin to train our children from small, but also leave a safe environment for them when the parents gone to work. You have a situation, I invite you to go to like the head of Mocha, and in the night you see a lot of women coming out to go and do security guard work. Many of them are single parents, but there is not in the community an early childhood center with accommodation so the child can stay, get professional treatment, etc. We have to also revamp the entire Ghana police force. The Ghana police force is one of the worst institutions in the country, and I'm not here blaming all the policemen. I'm saying the leadership of the Ghana police force is corrupt, incompetent, and we need law enforcement. At present, the law protects the guilty and goes after the innocent. And I can give you numerous evidence of that. A young man who somebody makes a complaint and says, oh, he did X, Y, and Z, the police puts him in the lockup for 72 hours when the law doesn't really permit it. So you have a repressive state, and we have got to change the dynamics, change the approach, and change the functions of the Ghana police force, or return them to the function of law enforcement rather than protecting the powerful. You have CCTV cameras that only work when poor people commit a crime. When the elite in this country commit a crime, it doesn't work. And Jagdi himself admitted it because he said they were going to charge a candidate that is now threatening them to beat them with murder. But if you had this information, why didn't you do it? The entire main street has CCTV cameras, but the government couldn't find data. In fact, they charged a young man who said that the evidence was leading in a particular direction. So you see, they have compromised law enforcement, and therefore they can't. The very critical area for us is agriculture. We are going to revamp agriculture, bring new approaches to agriculture, and we want to make every region in this country self-sustainable as it relates to food production. I don't know why we're talking about feeding the Caribbean, and if you go to Mali, the price you pay for Bora, if you train people, we plan to put back the agricultural assistance in place to help regions so that they can develop agriculture find markets for their food, and help to bring down the cost of living. It is too expensive to live in the hinterland. We have said we'll bring back the Ghana Airways. I noticed after I said that, Irfan Ali proceeded to say that to contribute to bringing down the cost of travel in the hinterland. So there are a number of policy measures, and when our manifesto comes out, you will see that it is comprehensive. It covers agriculture. Look, drainage and irrigation. We intend to separate the Ministry of Agriculture from drainage and irrigation. Drainage and irrigation as an area is too critical to be like a subset of the Ministry of Agriculture. The Ministry of Agriculture should be allowed to work with the production, etc. Of course, the other ministry will work in collaboration and fall under it, but there is need for specific focus on drainage and irrigation in a comprehensive way, because we are a low-lying state. You just have to look and see the rain that's just set up and Georgetown floods.
You know, I've allowed you to adumbrate your policies at length, really. And this is not to say they're not questions. One of the questions that bothers me as a journalist and just as a Guyanese and somebody who has traveled a little bit in the world is how we see Guyana. And we speak of the coast and the hinterland as if they're two separate units, as not as a country as a whole. And that's where I'm going. I once told somebody that were we to have a 4-lane highway, and it would only take me 4 hours to get into Lethem or to Boa Vista, I'll be there every day, or at least every week, because there are parts of the country that are so beautiful and that can be used as selling points, which brings me to tourism and the creative sector and culture and so on. My favorite talking points in terms of drama and the arts and what have you. And of course, this whole idea of digital technology and the information age, internet, and what have you. I listened to President Ali speak about, you know, the digital transformation and so on that was going on. And it was interesting. I'd heard it before. I'd heard it before because I sat with some of the advisors to the then Minister of Public Telecommunications, the Honorable Cathy Hughes, and all the policies that he was adumbrating and talking about were already in place. What's the challenge that we have in this country to have a national plan, whether it's PNC one side or PPP the other side or any other parties involved? A national plan that says this is how we'll develop Aishalton and Lethem, this is how we shall develop Madio and the Bartica Triangle, this is how we will do the Northwest, this is how we'll do Oriala and Aichuni and Kokwani, and you know, this is how we'll do the New River Triangle area. Why can't we just work on that, including the questions that I asked you with regards to the other things?
Let me start by you saying that there's a difference between the coast and the hinterland.
Yeah, coast and the hinterland.
But
yes.
There is. The hinterland is less developed than the underdeveloped coast. That's a reality. Let us not operate as if the coast itself is underdeveloped. The hinterland, you see all the scars of poverty and lack of development. So one of the things you will see in our manifesto is us talking about narrowing the gap between the hinterland and the coast. Now you speak to a plan. We have a plan, but the issue is not solely the plan. A lot of times you have the general policy. What we intend to do is, having set out the policy, we set out the projects to achieve the policy. Because the problem is implementation. And we need proper implementation units to ensure, one, the thing is implemented, two, the standard is maintained, and there's the human resource to do it. A lot of that will demand reducing corruption and increasing efficiency. Because one of the problems the society has is that under this government, there are high levels of corruption, and where there are high levels of corruption, development generally doesn't occur. And so we have to deal with that. As it relates to tourism, tourism is heavily dependent on a particular kind of infrastructure. Let's take ecotourism. If you're going to develop ecotourism, you will also have to have the infrastructure to get people into the hinterland quick and get them out. So road development becomes important. And railway development, we are thinking about a railway straight to Lethem that will allow the movement. But when you look at ecotourism, you need a proper system of medevacing people. You need to have the requisite protection for when people are in a jungle as such. Because ecotourism is basically not the same tourism as sand and blue water, etc. It's a different kind of tourism which attracts a different clientele. And even in that, we will have to put the legal mechanism in place because there is what is called gene rustling. I don't know if you know what is gene rustling, but a good botanist or a good scientist can come, take a piece of one of our plants or whatever, patent it, and you lose it to them. I was reading recently where the curare, which comes from the green arts, is patented in countries that don't have green arts. So we have got to look at it in a holistic fashion. Also, for us to be useful in tourism, we have to change the culture. We do not have a culture of service. One man reported to me that he went into a hotel and the man, big man, we don't go to sleep, you know the hour. Now in a tourist culture, you serve people any hour and you put the mechanism in place. So I see tourism. In my presentation on the arts last Friday, I did underscore the importance of the arts. You know, I've been saying, the jokers in the PPP were laughing when I said we should pay careful attention to rukatuks, because rukatuks is a combination of comfort and kwekwe, and it's a good fusion. There is another indigenous rhythm. I don't remember if it was given a name, but when you listen it, you hear it is distinctive to the indigenous community. But we don't put anything in place to develop those rhythms. What we are doing is importing Jamaica, importing Europe and North America, and asphyxiating, stifling your own culture. And that is why I said we have to pass copyright laws, intellectual property rights. Right now you have cases where people complaining that they give the government an idea and the government turn them down and somebody gone with the idea. So intellectual property is critical to the arts. And we have got to put in a very structured way in our schools the arts. When I went to high school, we always had drama festivals. At our speech night at Mackenzie High School, all the houses had to put together a play and compete. We always had music, every class, etc. What we have done, or what has been done over the years, is to remove that, what I call the classy element, and I'm not using it in the classist sense, the classy element of culture. We have brought entertainment down to lawlessness. Mind you, I like entertainment. I believe the entertainment industry can contribute to the development of Guyana, but in doing it, we have to be careful not to be importing the worst of other cultures and affecting our society. And so, again, I see a comprehensive approach in which we try to develop indigenous music, indigenous drama school, find mechanisms to ensure children are involved in drama so that their talent can emerge. And that will help us to have in communities, proper entertainment rather than what is now passing for entertainment. We have to be in the digital age. I mean, it's a shame that you go into a board certificate office and they're still fighting to take down a big book to see when you're born. When we could create employment by taking young people, make them data entry clerks, and we can digitalize this country and create jobs at the same time. But all of this is dependent on the development of STEM and AI. We have to make a concerted effort to ensure that our children are doing well in science, in mathematics, technology, etc., so that the society has the basis to move forward technologically. To move forward technologically, we need a national literacy program. Let's assume you digitalize everything, in which you got to read to carry out a bank transaction. You go to a bank and somebody say, "Bana, you know, I can't mambo. Help me." And you got to help that person. I'm not blaming the person. I'm blaming the system. The system has failed our young people. And we have to go back to square one and have a national literacy program to ensure that we have the literacy levels we are looking at. I'm saying to you as well that we need to train people. We need to utilize our social workers or psychologists to help young people and help people generally to overcome the mental health and other problems that they have in the society. This thing demands a comprehensive approach and an all-of-government approach where all sections of the government are pitching in to ensure you succeed. And mind you, it will take time because it's going to be a learning curve.
I'm talking with the leader of a Partnership for National Unity, the leader of the PNCR, and the leader of the opposition for now. He is a presidential candidate for the APNU, so the Partnership for National Unity, that coalition of parties. Who are these people who are in your coalition, if you may?
Well, it's
why should we, as a public, be convinced that your vote matters? The vote matters for your party.
Okay, let's deal first with who are there. PNCR, of course, we're there. Kingdom Liberation Movement, which is a set of church people there, and they are of the view that they need to impact political decisions and they represent people, so we have them there. We have the Working People Alliance, which has had a history. We got the National Front Alliance, the Ghana Action Party, a group on the East Coast called a Movement for Improvement, and the Rastamen Legalized Cannabis Guyana. A lot of people would say, why would you bring them in? We ain't promising anybody to legalize marijuana. What we're promising them is that as a part of this society, you must have a stake in the national cake. You must have a say. And so we believe that they can work amongst the Rastafarian community to improve the lives of the Rastafarian community. There are a number of industries that are emerging that are suitable for the Rastafarian community, and we are well prepared to work with them and ensure that they take their place in the society. There are different cultural elements, but all of us have different cultural elements. Now, why should people believe we? You know, I am criticized for being on Orange Walk, for being on Pleasance Line Top, for being liming in the streets in Linden. And you know why I do it? I do it because I want to stay in contact with the people. I believe the mistake we make in government is that we go to an election, You elect people, and then they become high and mighty. They don't relate to the people who would have made them. I believe a lot of Guyanese believe that I will stay on the ground, I will work with them, I will represent their interests. And even though there is a small group that criticizes me for it, I'm well aware that if I didn't do it, the same group would say, you see, you get big ego going back there. So I think our grounding with the people is what will cause them to vote for us. Our messaging, we are going to send them the clear message that this country has oil resources. You are not feeling the oil resources, but the policies and programs we have will put money in your pocket and ensure that you get a better quality life. And I think that will cause them to vote for us and to believe that we will deliver to them, because we are giving concrete plans that can be implemented.
Which brings me to the next question, which is probably the more important one with regard to the oil resources. That the argument has been that, no, you guys don't know how to manage things. You don't know to account for things. You're not good administrators. You're not good accountants. You're not good auditors. You can't get things done, as if that is the preserve of only a certain set of people in the country, which bothers me as a Guyanese. Do you have the wherewithal in terms of administrators, managers, project engineers and all the other things to get all these things done in Guyana's oil economy and make sure that we get as much as possible from our oil economy?
I've heard these criticisms, but I want to say something before I go to the actual question. When the coalition took over Guyana in 2015, there was constant blackout. We engaged professionals and we turned GPL around. By the time we left government, GPL was making money and there was little or no blackout. Come the so-called geniuses who got all the skills, and where GPL is. Constant blackout, we hire a ship to rescue us, and even that can't rescue us. They only talk about being managers. They can't manage. We took over GWI, the water sector, put water in many communities, and we were delivering 24/7 water of high quality. Come back the managers, you get a mob, you go to the shop to buy it. You could get it out your pipe. So let us not be carried away by all of these pronouncements. Let's look at law enforcement. Under us, we started to solve crimes. People started to feel a sense of security in Guyana. Welcome back the PPP. And extrajudicial killing, you're covering up the murder of a child, among others. So let us look at the facts. The facts reveal that the PPP is incompetent. They are corrupt. Now, we've put together a mixed core of people. Young people, matured people, some experience, some inexperience. But we believe to manage Guyana, it is not the politician that has to do it. I think there is where the PPP makes the mistake. The politician should be employing quality people to manage those institutions. One of the reasons I have always been excited and engaged Terence Campbell was because I think he has business management skills, and it's a skill that you need to add to the political arena. So I'm saying to you, we will train, and I'm telling you, but no online university that isn't recognized. We will put our resources into training people in quality, respectable universities. Bring them home back. We do some of the training here, those that train, we bring them home back and give them a livable income that suits the job they are doing, so that they can contribute to the development of Guyana. There are many, many professionals that we could engage to help us manage. I believe the fault will be to believe who you appoint minister and parliamentary secretary are the people to manage the country. Those are the people to outline the policies and programs. It is your professional core that has to implement. And that is why we will go back to establishing a public service training college, which President Granger did. The impact of that is that you will begin to produce young people who are well equipped, understand a public service, and can work in the public service. So I don't buy all of these arguments. Look, let's assume the PPP had the skills they're talking about. Why we never had a proper audit outside of the one done by us of the oil sector? 2, why gas to shore, which should have finished 2023, went to 2024, went to 2025, and now it's 2026. It's a good thing then and there after September 2025. If they are so good, explain why they can't finish the track and field stadium in Linden and New Amsterdam. If they are so good, why is it we had Skeldon, in which we spent millions of dollars, and today it has produced nothing? The Enmore packaging factory, fiber optic cable. They talk as if they did, but when you look at their unfinished projects and the money they wasted, you will recognize that they use their propaganda to conceal their limitations. I believe we will take a different approach. We will have the requisite professionals. And when you see our list, you will see that they are professionals who can manage this country. I met out to Paul Williams because I recognize he has a stellar history in the Ghana Police Force. He is competent, and there are some competent ones in the present police force, barring the commissioner, who I regularly said has needed a certification or the qualification to be commissioner. And we are going to bring in quality people, reinvigorate like things like the Public Service Commission, etc., with independent people so we can govern the society.
Are you going to do anything different with regard to our oil and how we, the kind of deal that we've had, and whether we are going to end up in terms of a sovereign wealth fund? I always point out to people there's a country called Nauru.
Yeah.
And it had resources, it had phosphates. And there's still a country called Nauru, but it's not at the level where it was intending to go. How are we going to avoid the Nauru?
First of all, we have to understand what we want our sovereign wealth fund for. We want it to have savings, which we can invest, so that when oil is in problems, you have resources. So we will change this thing with the government, carry it to Parliament, so that they can take out virtually 95% of the funds. We will put a figure that can be used, but a figure that will be for savings. So that's the first thing we'll do. We will change the Natural Resource Fund to make it a fund that approximates Norway rather than Guinea or some other country that didn't have a successful one. The second thing we have said, we believe we can engage ExxonMobil and between us work out ways and means of ensuring that the people of Guyana can benefit more from oil and gas. I've said we will train people. One of the first tasks we have to undertake is to send people and train for the oil and gas sector. And when they return, be able to help us with the oil and gas sector. We have to accept as a fact that we knew little or nothing about oil and gas. We have professionals like Vincent Adams, who we will obviously bring back to help us. And there are other professionals in the diaspora. I have schoolmates who I talk to that serve within the sector. And so we believe that with a combination of the skills in Ghana and the skills in the diaspora, we will be able to manage the oil and gas sector. The most critical thing, I think, to solve is the corruption. Because once there is that level of corruption, you will always want to destroy the natural resource fund. And this government is so corrupt, they're kleptocratic. They cannot see money and leave it. And that's the reality.
Which brings me to my last question here. And I remember Carl Greenwich said money doesn't fall off the face of the earth, it goes somewhere else. So if there is corruption, money is obviously going somewhere else, and you could follow the money. Do you have plans to ensure that you follow the money, and if persons have not used that money in a way that benefited the country rather than themselves, that your government will take action?
You know,
don't promise it.
No, hold a minute. Let me answer. You know, I have never said we can put anybody in jail. You know why? A lot of the laws we have aren't structured to do it. A lot of the laws are developed in a way that it can facilitate corruption. We have a lot of British laws that assume decent men, for the want of a better word, and that there's some kind of a moral compunction pricking in the conscience. Now we have got to begin to transform into a more legalistic society so that people can face the full force of the law. As presently structured, malfeasance in public office wouldn't hit it. But I can say this to you, we will have the audits done and we will do what is necessary to seek to recoup the money. I cannot promise you we can put people in jail because the law is structured in such a way that the minister could thief.